Welcome to the 100 Master Coaches series featuring master coaches from around the world. Let's journey together on this 100 Master Coaches series with your host, Coach Mel, MCC. Lise Bruynooghe is an executive coach for fast-thinking, often unconventional leaders who navigate high-stakes complexity. She is known for creating lasting shifts in presence and impact through her work in the Swiss mountains and globally online. She is a master certified coach with the ICF and EMCC, and former senior executive at the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Lise currently chairs the ICF Global Enterprise Board, is the founder of the Lise Bruynooghe Academy, and is a globally recognized speaker on leadership, complexity, and systemic transformation, including on TEDx. Now on to the show.
Hello, and welcome to the 100 Master Coaches show. This is Coach Mal, and today, on my podcast, is none other than Coach Lise from Switzerland. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mel.
As always, before we begin into that dive into your coaching journey, we'd love to know a little bit more about Lise.
So I will need a bit of guidance because Lise is so multifaceted that I need to know which facets are you interested in right now.
I'm going to leave it open for you to express.
Well, so then I guess multifaceted is a good start. Multi-passionate sometimes as well, which obviously many of my clients are as well. And it is a gift and sometimes a pretty heavy burden at the same time, because so many things are interesting, fascinating, exciting. And obviously life is very short. And so figuring out where to focus your energy, your attention, your time can be a bit of a struggle. I've gotten better over the years. So now it's a pretty streamlined ship, I would say, in terms of what I do, many things I stopped doing, many things that are very important to me. So my family would be one. I recall in our industry, there's a lot of discourse around, a very well-tuned morning routine, getting up at 5 a.m., doing whatever, the gratitude journal, and then the exercises and this and that. And I don't do any of that because for me, the greatest joy is to get a quick cuddle or a quick kiss from my kids. And they're teenagers, so you never know when they will come down the stairs and when they will have time for you. And so I just sit there with, my green tea by the kitchen table. I'm available for whenever, there's this little 1-2 seconds of hug in the morning. Yeah. And that makes me very happy. The other thing maybe about me is I am a very long-term relationship person. For me, it's obviously normal, like, for everyone, being you is normal. But then you realize, this is actually an anomaly. So a lot of my friends come from early childhood. And then, over the years, yes, you add 1 or 2 in different life stations. But the kind of very core group comes from school, like literally primary and secondary school, and then some from university, a few additional ones, and then a few additional ones from London times. But it's really this kind of strong foundation. And I think that is my base. And from that, you then draw the energy to be able to go out in the world and do the work you're called to do.
Thank you. That is multifaceted, and I got a couple of things there. And what I'm amazed about is the intention that you put behind that. And it's often, as I'm listening, very long-term, as you also said. And I'm just curious on the point of coaching entering your life. So maybe that's a place to explore next.
Yeah. And before I go to coaching, what popped up for me was the word intention. Yeah. And I think what shaped me there is that a lot of people I really either loved deeply or knew very well passed away when I was young. And so that came quite as a shock because very often, people pass away when we are a little bit older in life, or if we're young, it's usually the grandparents. For me, when I was 15, it was a 16-year-old friend. So he was too young to die. His name was Peter. Then again, same age, I think 15, 16, I had a guest mother in the UK. I really loved her. Her name was Carmel. And she also passed away. She must have been in her early 40s. Again, too early, etc. So I won't give you the whole list, but there's a long list of people dying too young when I was still pretty young. And teenage years are, important years. They kind of influence you massively. And so that kind of shaped my outlook on life in terms of knowing that actually living up to 90, it'd be great, or 100 or whatever, right? Longevity does quite a lot of stuff these days, but living to be really old is not necessarily given to everyone. And so why would I assume that it's given to me? So that's been driving me throughout my life, to know that actually I have no certainty whatsoever of being alive tomorrow. I hope I will, but I just don't know. And so a lot of my decisions are made with that prism. So that is maybe just as an aside around the intention that I have for my life. On the coaching, it entered my life pretty early on in my career. So I was working for an international development bank, and they had a new president. And as it goes very often, the new incoming CEO or president would kind of address stuff. And so he did that by writing a long manifesto around what he was hoping to change in the bank. He had been elected on that manifesto. And I was a very junior person at the time. I read this thing. It must have been 8 to 10 pages long. Right. And I felt super energized. I was like, gosh, this is fantastic what he's trying to do. Like, this will really be better for the world if our organization manages to move in that way. And I shared that over coffee with someone else, without knowing that someone else happened to be, the right hand of the president. I was pretty young and naive at the time. And so a few weeks later, I'm in the president's office, not even realizing that I'm being interviewed. I'm just having a nice chat with the president, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. To me, somehow it was. I don't know why. And then a few months later, I was joining as his advisor, working on change. And so I would go to people. I was like full of enthusiasm. And people would look at me, literally cross their arms and be like, Lise, I don't care. Presidents come and go. This one will go. Let's just sit this one out. Like I'll just continue with my work. I honestly don't care. I mean, at least they were honest with me, which I appreciated. And so another coffee, this time with a guy who happened to be in HR. And somehow I share that and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I go to these people, I want to do these changes and I don't have any buy-in. Like they honestly tell me they don't care. And he told me, Lise, you need coaching skills. And I had no idea what this was. And so I asked him, what is this? And then he explained a little bit. And the way I am is that if someone I respect and trust recommends something, I'm not going to waste my time research the thing. Like, I'm just going to go with it, right? And so he recommended, I was like, okay, where did you train? And he named Zora Boas, who is still, she's an MCC coach. She was one of the very first, and she still is active. She still does train people. I can't recommend her training enough. It is fantastic. And so I trained with her. And the rest is history, honestly. So, I started using coaching skills in-house. Never, ever would I have thought that I would become a full-time coach one day. For me, it was more like learning how to do pivot table in Excel. I was a banker before, so that was what one would do at the time, or learning how to read financial statements. That was coaching to me. Now, obviously, it is my profession full-time. I would never have imagined that in the beginning.
And as I'm hearing this beautiful narrative, right, I'm imagining this young gusto lady with that vision of the president going to different places and talking about change management. And I'm just wondering what sort of other pushbacks that you had to overcome. Of course, now with a bit of coaching skill sets, having gone through the classes and perhaps maybe even something shifting within you. So just kind of curious on that part where how coaching became a little bit more a part of your working career.
Yeah. So there's something shifting within me. There's another funny story there. I never forget that moment. The president one day comes into the office, looks at me and is like, Lise, do you have new glasses? Because I was wearing glasses at the time. I'm like, no. Oh, do you have a new haircut? I'm like, nope. And I kind of got it. Like, I was different. Of course I was. Everyone becomes different when they either are being coached or when they train in coaching skills. Like, I have a coach training school too, and people always tell me, oh, I didn't realize it would change me so much for the better, of course. That's a good thing. But you grow in self-awareness. And as a result, yes, you change. And so you're absolutely right. That change is visible. I don't know how to describe it. People sense it and they can't quite put their finger on it. So that's why they ask, glasses, haircut, whatever. But yes, so that definitely. The rest of change, I think there actually was another education, life education that I got that helped me tremendously in leading this organizational change. Because organizational change, like individual change, but even more so, is very systemic. So if you move faster than your colleague, you are afraid of losing that colleague's respect. Are you afraid maybe of losing your power, your positioning in the firm? So fear is huge, is in the room, and one needs to be able to work with fear. And for that, you need empathy. You also need the right pace. And every human being will have a different need for pace. So some are happy to be the trailblazers and to be the innovators and to be out in front, and others will stay at a safe distance and only follow once the majority is following. We see the same for climate change. We see the same for the positioning on the many wars that are happening in the world. So it's the same dynamic. And so identifying within the organization, okay, who are I used to call them diamonds. Who are my diamonds? Who are the people that I can rely on, who will shine brightly? And who are people who are unlikely to go in the first wave? And so I still need to keep them close and keep them engaged, but I understand that I can't ask too much of them because this is just not something they're willing to take on. And there's something really important. So our youngest son got diagnosed with cancer, and that was in a second wave of a massive change program. So he's in remission now.
That's good.
But there's another thing I'll never forget. And we were in this hospital in London. It's Great Ormond Street. They're specialized in kids. And we were on the cancer ward. And I still remember we arrived on a Thursday and they only announced the start of the chemotherapy on the Monday. Between Thursday and Monday, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 full days, you are in that cancer ward. So you have like posters about cancer everywhere, kids with no hair. Like it's impossible not to see. I was completely blind to it. And it's only on the Monday when they told me we're starting the chemotherapy that my world just, fell apart. And I was like, what? So until that point, I had hoped that somehow, they come and they tell you, oh, it's all been a mistake. You can go home. It was nothing really. And so that personal experience was so important because working on change, I obviously knew intellectually about the change curve, the denial phase in the beginning, which was bang on what I had been in the cancer world. I was in full denial. But knowing something intellectually and experiencing it yourself is just, worlds apart. And so when I came back to work, I then noticed other things. So the change team was talking about the people who were not coming along with us as blockers. They were very negative, like, those blockers, they just don't get it, etc. And I saw that and I realized, no. those people, they're not blocking. They're similarly to me with a cancer story, they're in denial. They're just, it's too much. They're overwhelmed, and maybe they're not seeing it yet.
Yeah.
Or maybe they need a bit of time to kind of let go of what used to be and to then kind of warm up to what is going to be. And that allowed me to approach colleagues in a completely different way and to be more effective as a result and more human. And so that, it wasn't a coaching education per se, but it was such an important education. I learned so much. And I'd say it kind of complements my coaching skills to this day.
Thank you. Thank you for diving deeper. And it's so true, right? How some people will view certain things in their benefit. Some will see it in a different light. Some will be in denial, as you say. Some will be too overwhelmed with that fear of the uncertainty, and so on and so forth. So there's so many layers of different people that we meet every single day, including the best of our clients. And as they go through these shifts within them, they will also begin to, I guess, remove, using your words, remove those blockers slowly and slowly, right? As we create that safety, that environment that they're able to be themselves, I think liberates them to come out even more.
No, absolutely. A client of mine once said in a testimonial, Lise works on the person first and the business second. He's an entrepreneur. And it's absolutely right, because if you work on the business without working on all the layering of the human leading that business, it's surface level work. So whatever issue you bring will just pop up again. It might pop up in your next business. It might pop up in your private life. Like, it's not resolved. I like to talk about it like, putting lipstick on a pig, or it's a cosmetic fix. And so like any makeup in the evening, you remove it. Or, if it rains, it just removes itself. So that is the type of work that I'm not interested in, because I much rather would want to indeed go deeper through the layers. And fix is the wrong word, but look at whatever it is that is happening there and then decide, okay, how do we want to shift it? What is the pattern we want to have going forward? And as we do that, it also empowers the clients, because it teaches them a process of self-awareness and self-reflection and action. And so once they've done that a few times with me, same client, by the way, he said that he has an internalized Lise. So he's like, oh, Lise would ask me that. He doesn't need me anymore, I'm in his head. And that's pretty cool in a way, because it means that he has internalized those ways of getting to deeper self-awareness and then getting to choice. Who do I want to be now? What do I want to do now? Rather than being on this so-called autopilot.
And right now, I think I'm sensing the Lise inside the Lise, hearing those voices that could have come up when you moved from your contribution to the organization and into coming out as Lise the coach. What were some of those voices that needed to be addressed along the way?
Yeah. And that's so funny. Because very often people think that there must have been a moment when I sat down and I decided I'm going to be a coach.
This is it.
And, like this moment of, and I'm going to build my website and this is what I'm going to do. And you do your business plan, etc. And I have a lot of clients who have those moments, right? They leave corporate and they sit down with me and we decide what they're going to do and we write their business plan. For me, it didn't go about it in this way at all.
Okay.
So there was COVID in the middle. So I left EBRD and London and went to Switzerland for private reasons. We just wanted a better quality of life. So we decided to move the family to Switzerland to have that quality of life. And DEBID did not have offices in Switzerland. So they offered me, yeah, you can come work in London Monday to Friday, travel back to your family on the weekends. I was like, no way, that's not the type of family life I want for myself. Yeah. So I resigned. And obviously still in the old paradigm, I was like, okay, so you need your next job. Yes. So I resigned, but I also had already secured my next gig in Switzerland, which was a really nice one. And then my stomach was feeling tenser and tenser the closer we got to the starting date. And I'm like, oh shit, something's not quite right. And so I called a coach, Janet Stokes, who sits in the US. She's fantastic. And so I call her and I'm like, Janet, I need a coaching session. And she works a lot with in very different ways that take me out of my brain, which is strong. So, when you have a strong brain, and a lot of my clients have that, you can justify this and you can justify the opposite equally elegantly. Like, yes. You can make everything work, yes. Logically in your mind. Yeah. And so I needed someone to take me out of the mind, because I knew, okay, that's not going to give me the answer I need. And I realized after the coaching session with her that this really wasn't my path to join that firm. So I told them I would not come, which was not an easy conversation to have. And then I was just home with literally no plan whatsoever. And then calls and emails would come in like, Lise, I need coaching. Can you help? Sure. Lise, this group is looking for a facilitator. Are you available? Yeah. And so stuff was coming in. I was saying yes to everything because I had time. And then over time, I started pruning because, over time you get oversubscribed. And then I looked at, what do I enjoy doing? What gives me joy? And what do I not enjoy so much? And so everything I did not enjoy, I kind of, obviously you finish the engagement, but then you do not repeat. And so this now leads to me having a 100% coaching only practice. When I started out, it was a mix of facilitation and consulting and coaching, and obviously everything that I have a skill set to do. Yep. And I realized actually the pure coaching is what gives me most joy and where I feel I have the biggest impact. And so that's my focus now.
And I have that deep breath, some part saying, I wish I had parts of that bravery that you have as well. And then there are parts where I also do enjoy those bits of that consulting or that psychometric analysis that we do. Perhaps I've got to work on certain parts of me to say what actually gives me that deeper sense of joy, as you say. Right?
And that goes back to death, I think, because I mentioned how it shaped me in my early teens. Yeah. And it shaped me again later on. So a lady who trained me, Mi Yan Cheong Judge, she's fantastic too. And I met her when she already had cancer. And it was one of the best trainings I ever attended. She packed, I think, 3 weeks in 3 days. Wow. And my brain is very fast, but even that was too fast for my brain. Like I was fried at the end of the day. Boom, it was exploding. And she said, I'm in a hurry. I don't have much time left. And I just want to share everything I know with you. Gosh, it's the best training ever. I learned so much from her. And yet when she passed away, I looked at my life. And at the time I was teaching. And I had to take, so it used to be online. Before I had started teaching from London, and the university was in Paris, at Sciences Po Paris. And so London, Paris is an easy commute. But Zurich, Paris is a bit longer, especially because I don't live in Zurich. I live 1 hour out. And so 5 hours to go there. Then you teach for 4 hours and then 5 hours back. So very long day. Wow. And 10 hours of travel for 4 hours of teaching. Plus, obviously, it's not well paid at all. You don't do it for the money. You do it for the love of teaching. And when she passed away, I had that moment of, I can't do this anymore. Like, literally. And so I stopped it. I was like, I emailed them. I said, I'm so sorry. I asked a lot of other people who were delighted to be able to put Sciences Po lecturer on their CV. They got to continue my course and I was out. So sometimes there are moments like that where you realize, no, that's too much. The balance is just not right. And I think that's so important to continuously think of the balance, because it may be right at one point in time, but we change and the world around us changes constantly. And so to very regularly kind of sense into yourself and be like, okay, is that still the right balance? What do I need more of right now? What do I need less of right now? And to kind of rejig the pieces.
Yeah. And we've probably both experienced those rejigs a couple of times through life and through big events. And then there's the younger coaches coming in, right? And they're like, I've got to be a jack or a Jill of all trades, right? Because it's tough, right? Just doing coaching 100%, especially coming from different parts of the world where coaching is still not that in the news. What do you say for people like that who are still finding their footing and obviously still wanting to honor what's important for them?
Yeah, a few things. So ICF has this regular study with PwC on the state of the coaching industry.
Okay.
And there are quite a few data points around the fact that coaches who do only coaching and live from it successfully, it's a minority. So I'm very aware that I'm in a very restrained minority. Most coaches have various things. Consulting, facilitation, all sorts of, training, teaching, a lot of kind of adjacent areas that they do on top of the coaching. And again, I think very often a young coach will not necessarily know what they like. And so trying all of that is actually pretty cool. It's like when you have those traineeships in companies and they send you to the sales department and the marketing department and the banking department and the finance department. And, and you kind of experience a little bit of everything. Yeah. And then you're like, yeah, I really like that. And a lot of it is complementary. So I've got from my professional days, a lot of, change management, organizational design, organizational development, like you name it, all of that. I can do it in my sleep. So it still is useful. If one of my clients is facing huge change in a big corporate, I know exactly what they're talking about. I've been there, I've done it. So it's kind of allows me to probably ask better questions, more pointed questions than if I had no clue. So for me, it's a little bit like Legos, if you want, Lego bricks, and look at what kind of bricks you like, what kind of bricks you want to try. And you try them and you discover whether or not it's a good fit for you and for your life.
That's true.
And at some point you start discarding those you don't like. And the picture will look different for everyone.
Definitely. I had a coach friend who loves Lego, so everything's related to that. I can truly resonate with that. For even myself, I was a Lego enthusiast when I was young. This building blocks, right? It kind of helps us with sometimes the foundation, and sometimes our foundation will move a little bit as we grow up, as we become more mature and be exposed to different things. And I guess those bits will impact the very essence of who we are too. So my thoughts here right now, Lise, is how much of yourself actually also appears in what you offer out there, and how important is that for who you attract?
So I have two answers here. One is a model that was taught by Zora Boas, the person who trained me decades ago. And she calls it VIA, vocation, integration, alignment.
Okay.
And it's the sense of, know what your vocation is, identify that. Integration is, okay, those are your building blocks. You've been a child and I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a friend, I'm, like those are private kind of building blocks if you want. And then I love cycling. I love nature. I love, anything that's linked to sciences. Very curious about that. And then, I love to understand how the human mind functions, etc. So you have like, the list is so long, like there are probably hundreds building blocks that everyone brings,
true.
right? And it's the sense of, okay, so this is what you bring. This is what makes you you. I sometimes like to talk of a mosaic, like so many little. And how do you want to bring that together? And is there a gap, a new skill you want to learn and add to that? Or a new awareness you want to develop and add to that? And the alignment is once you've kind of put that together into some whole, whatever shape it has, then you're ready to go. And this process is not once and for all, because again, as we were saying, life moves, we move. And so very regularly, as soon as you sense that something is kind of out of kilter, you're not, it's off. Then you're like, okay, probably I need to do it again. What's my vocation now? Because you've learned new things, you've maybe discarded certain things. What are the pieces I want to kind of integrate? And then what's your alignment? So that's the VIA. And that works for, the way our societies think of the I, who I am. The second answer is very different. There's an app I absolutely love by Sam Harris. It's called Waking Up. And it has a collection of all sorts of different schools of thought around awareness, if you want. Who am I? Where do our thoughts come from? Are we our thoughts? We're not our thoughts. Our thoughts kind of come and go. And so observing the mind. And then essentially the I dissolves because there's no I, and you realize, we're all kind of connected. And so that is another kind of practice, if you want, that is very strong in my life and in my practice. Some clients come to me and talk about spirituality and their way of looking at the world and understanding themselves in the world. Some clients don't. And obviously I don't need to push it onto anyone. But that is certainly something that I'm very interested in. So the work of Anil Seth, who looks a lot at consciousness, is something that I'm very interested in, and anything linked to that. So also the work of biologists around plants, around how forests work. That is stuff that really gets me quite excited, and that I observe in myself. And I don't have the answer, like many people. I'm kind of observing and noticing. But I find this a very interesting path to go down. And in that path, there is no I.
Love it. Speaking on both that consciousness of self and then the consciousness of the systems and your awareness of that. And of course, it's just uniquely how you put it. It's so true. I totally resonate with that, because there's that both coexisting and the both needs to constantly ask each other. It's like we're in a dialogue together, right? And it's
tough because it would be so much easier to just say, okay, I'm going to be a monk. I'm going to disappear in the mountains. And that's it, right? I take myself out of society. And then you can be completely in the no self and non-dual world. And that's easy. The difficulty is when you are in that and you need to interact in our everyday structures, in a company with hierarchies, with people with strong egos, wanting to kind of, claim their space, and so that is very often a dance that I help my clients do. Like, how can they be who they feel they are, and at the same time operate in those structures where there's backstabbing and office politics and all sorts of things that you need to navigate really wisely. And I like that. It is difficult because sometimes you lose yourself and then you're full on in the backstabbing world and politicizing and doing your intrigues. And you completely forget about those much deeper insights that you had. And okay, how do you then find back to resource yourself again. And that dance is tough.
Yeah.
But it's it's a nice challenge.
It's very true. It's like I like to explore spaces in nature that is a little structured, right? So like I've got a certain route that I go, or routes that I go to, right? And then there is that, if I really want to explore and get lost for hours, I could. I live very near a mountain range, so if I didn't want to follow the beaten track, I could, and then I don't, right? Because it's the, oh my gosh, I've got to be back, and I've got to go back to the structures of things, and I've got to continue with life, because that's what life is all about, isn't it? And then realize that what you said, that word, the power of the AND, right? It's the and. It is not this or that. It's not black and white. It is that, what if, things do coexist. So what if we accept things as it's able to coexist, and that and invites the chance for a dance, that we can still be in those places and learn from it, observe, question it, or be a part of it.
And this goes back to very old thinking. It's thousands of years. If you think of the yin and yang, the book of changes in the Chinese philosophy, this is exactly that. This is a book about polarities. If you look at the hexagrams, it's all about polarities: war and peace, night and day, cold and warm, etc. And leadership is nothing else than a dance of polarities. How to be empathetic and challenging, how to think short-term and long-term. And so for me, it's really about helping those leaders see, in a situation, there may be 3, maybe 5 polarities that are important, and helping them kind of fine-tune. I see them as lines, and helping them fine-tune, okay, where do I need to be on that line for this specific situation? Do I need to really focus on the long term here, or be somewhere in the middle, or think short term? Do I need to be super challenging, or middle, or super empathetic? And so really being aware of this ability to be both. And it's a choice for us. It's a choice every single time. How am I going to show up today on those polarities? And the world is made of polarities. And it's made of patterns. If you think of the seasons in nature, the night and day obviously is a polarity. And once we recognize that, I find that it becomes so much more enjoyable to live, because it's just a dance.
And what a beautiful dance we are having. And there's so much I want to ask you. And I'll go there next with the beautiful body of the ICF, right, where we're all part of. Perhaps let's go back a little bit to what kind of drew you to be a part of the ICF.
Once I made coaching my profession, I felt that it was really important to volunteer for a body that is taking care of that profession. And you alluded to some of it. In the country where I live, and maybe that's the case where you live as well, there still is quite a bit of stigma around coaching. So people are not necessarily proud. So if you go to the US, and to some extent in the UK, people will be like, ha, I have a coach. Like showing off your Rolex watch, or showing off your sports car, or whatever, a nice handbag. It's kind of a sign of status. It's something that people are proud of. And they will be like, yes, and my coach, da, 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 da. That's why in today's call, I've made a point of naming every teacher, because it happens so rarely. People may say, I have a coach, but they will not say who. So that doesn't help the coach. Like, how are they to find new clients if their clients either don't talk about them having a coach, or they talk about it, but they don't share the name? Like, if we want to help the industry, we need to celebrate our coaches and share their names, so that people can be like, oh, let me look her up. Let me see who this is, because Lise spoke highly of her, or John, or Sam, or whatever, right? And so that is really important. And the other pattern that I see in the industry is that it's not regulated. And so everyone can wake up and say, oh, I'm a coach, with no training whatsoever.
Yeah,
And, if they're good in marketing, they can get quite a lot of clients.
that's true.
And the number of people I met who told me they've been burnt, and they've had a coach, and that coach said something to them that really hurt them, and now they will never, ever talk to a coach again. And that harms the profession. Yeah. And so I feel very strongly about that. It harms the profession and it harms the people. I feel also strongly about those people who feel like, oh, they've been in a probably kind of abusive relationship with someone who calls themselves a coach and obviously was not a coach because they broke every kind of standard around ethics and around professionalism. So I feel very strongly around ethics and professionalism. Now, not every ICF coach is ethical and professional. Some are not, but there's a mechanism for that. So there is, a review body where a client could escalate the issue and then the coach gets removed from the ICF. So there's a mechanism. And there are, of course, coaches who are not with the ICF who are extremely professional and ethical. So I'm not, again, we're in the both end territory. I don't do black and white. But that is what prompted me to volunteer my time.
Yeah, and I noticed that you were part of the UK chapter, right?
Yes.
You were past president there. Tell me one story from that experience serving the people that kind of gave you the motivation to even go further in serving the ICF.
The UK chapter was a wonderful experience. And it always depends on who you have around you, right? So I was really lucky to have a fantastic team of people. There were many questions that those people brought up that I realized I could not answer at the UK level. They needed to be answered at the global level. And so that is what then prompted me to apply for a global role, because I thought, okay, at this point, you see more of the system. And that then allows to understand better, possibly explain better, or possibly challenge better. And so that was really the main driver. One thing that I think the ICF does not do well enough yet is that in some countries, it is being perceived as very US-centric, whereas that's not true. It is, yes, the headquarters are in the US, but there are chapters all around the world. And if you look at the volunteers, even on the US-based boards, I forgot the number, but we have like 40 plus nationalities around the table. It's very diverse in terms of where the volunteers are coming from. And it is a very global organization that is constantly kind of thinking about how coaching evolves in various parts of the world. And it is very different speeds and level of maturity depending on which country we're speaking of. So it is difficult to serve everyone. And so I would love to see a stronger link between our local people who are volunteers, they're super engaged, and our kind of headquarter presence. And I would also like to dismantle that kind of vision that it is US-led, because it's not. And so probably there's more work that needs to be done to reinforce really the two-way dialogue. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, again, back to what I said, to really encourage worldwide the perception around what coaching can do for people. I mean, it's magical. Everyone should have a coach. Coaching skills should be taught in primary school if it came to me, because what are coaching skills? Coaching skills are a way of relating to people. How often do I hear, oh, I'm afraid to share this. I'm scared of conflict. Or how often do we have prejudice that then leads to wars? So if only we could engage with one another, talk to one another, really kind of exchange and be curious and be non-judgmental, I think that would just solve so many problems. So those are skills we don't learn. Unfortunately, we learn reading and writing and counting. So there's so much work to be done.
Thank you for saying that, and thank you, of course, for serving the community, all of us. Talking about the early childhood, I had the privilege for 2 years now to work with Early Childhood Association in Singapore. And that is just, brings me such joy. Before the show, we kind of talked about what brought me joy. Actually, this is one of them that brings me lots of joy,
Nice.
where I see the things that we're teaching, the principles of the schools, right, being shared down to impact so many communities there, the parents, the children, the teachers. And I think those are just one of the amazing grassroots opportunities that coaching can be prevalent or perhaps more stronger in. Yeah, I really believe that. Um, I'm just wondering what would be one area. I know you talked about a few already, but if you would like to see something that actually can happen as all of us coaches come together, perhaps not just with the ICF, then what would you envision this coaching world coming together?
So I've been thinking about this one thing.
Mm,
And to me, I thought if coaches go out there and say, oh, coaching is so fantastic, it changes lives, no one believes you. Because obviously, I mean, you're selling your own services. So why, you obviously wouldn't say the opposite. And so I went then a step further in my thinking and I thought, if every coach, beyond ICF as well, if every coach could share 5, 10 testimonials of their clients, where the client says, hey, this is how it changed my life specifically. This is what it did. That would really help move the needle. Because then people who are on the fence, they would be like, wow, if this person got coaching, then so should I, right? Or if this person, because there are so many things. Some people think, oh, it's only for rich people. Some people like it. There's so many barriers that people make in their minds. Oh, it's only for this category or for that. It's for everyone. Some teenagers benefit from coaching. Some 80-year-olds benefit from coaching. Some poor people, some rich people, some fat people, some thin people. Like it doesn't matter. It's for any human being. And it makes you a better human being, a more loving, empathetic, a more grounded, more calm, more everything. I mean, not everything good. and so that would be quite nice for me to be able to have that strength of testimonials that resonates well beyond the kind of ICF bubble.
And I have a funny thought. Even our politicians need coaching too. I'll stop there.
Oh, yes. Couldn't agree more.
And actually, what we're talking about is we believe that coaching has made a difference in our lives and how we have seen it in our lives of our clients, what better ways to collate this vault, right? As we talk about the changes that coaching has made in our lives, it can impact the life of others. I think for me, Lise, the areas that I think coaching impacted me most was firstly as a husband and then as a father. This was the most important 2 areas in my life that actually coaching made impact. And thankfully, they also agree from the other side, not just me talking about it.
Yeah, no, that's good. And you see, I mean, as a husband, so it's influencing your partner, and they go out into the world and they show up differently too.
Oh, yeah.
So that influences their colleagues, their friends. So, if we start thinking of the ripple effects of this, oh, you're different. Yes, we are different, right? And so as a result, it just inspires and touches people. With your kids, I mean, what kind of gift is that? This is magnificent because they're young. And so again, it will have ripple effects far beyond us. And so that to me is what keeps me going. I just last week, I had a text message from a client who, we worked together a few years ago. And she texted me, Lise, I am free. with 5 exclamation marks. And, then sharing, and this is down to our work, and I can't thank you enough, But to me, getting a message like this, completely out of the blue, I come back from the supermarket, I look at my phone, Lise, I am free. And again, I won't give you the story of that person, but it is such a beautiful thing. And then if we could have more of that, wow.
Absolutely. The freedom over all fears, right?
Yes.
It's a dichotomy sometimes when you think about it, and that we can live with that. We can live with how we work with our fears, with the freedom that we're getting, and not be too afraid of it, right? And shun it. Right? So the end comes up again in this conversation, Lise. Any last thoughts for the audience listening in? We reach a variety of audience from, of course, coaches to HR professionals and the like.
Well, given that you just talked about fears, I think what comes to me now is just be curious and do the deeper work, because the surface level doesn't quite hold. And it's the same in organizations. A colleague of mine just published a book. So now I do not remember her co-author, but it's deeply influenced by work with Thomas Hübel on trauma, and how trauma is not just personal, but it's also ancestral, so passed down via our family line, but it's also societal, and how in organizations, things that are stuck, that don't quite work, very often there's a deeper reason there. And so if you really want to fix it, it's not enough to just change the agenda or the order of the agenda or the length of the meeting. You often need to dig a little deeper. And so really having that courage to dig a little deeper, have more self-awareness, because that just changes everything. And obviously a coach can help you with that.
100%. Thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, and all of your generous sharing today, Lise. I really appreciate our time together.
You're very welcome. It was fun.
This has been the 100 Master Coaches show today with Lise, my guest, and myself, Mel. Till the next time, make sure you explore the little shifts that are happening in your life. And as you do that, go towards the freedom and joy for your life. Take care. Bye for now.
You have been watching the 100 Master Coaches series with your host, Coach Mel, MCC. Brought to you by Catalyst Coach. www.catalystcoach.live. We will be right back with our next Master Coach on the 100 Master Coaches series.